Even general elections or electoral cycles are presented to you like entertainment, and we had an election in our country last night. So today we'll be talking about the election, then we'll be talking about war and the business of war with Colonel Douglas McGregor a little later. Has everything become a kind of simulacrum? That's what John Baudrillard invited us to consider, a kind of deracinated, endlessly repeated set of images that in the end bear no relationship to reality. I mean, does this seem to you a reasonable reaction even to a landslide election, meaning that Labour, which is our version of the Democrats, has a massive majority in Parliament, which is our version of Congress, and here's our version of the news media doing their version of what sounds like a kind of orgasm.
Oh. Whoa. Oh my God.
It won't make that much difference, I don't imagine. Perhaps it's all just playing out like a TV show. Maybe even my sceptical reaction towards another centrist, globalist, authoritarian being elected is part of the general sort of televisual or media, at least, spectacle. Here's the results. Look, Labour won loads and loads of seats. Conservatives lost loads and loads of seats. And a smattering of other parties won seats, including Nigel Farage's Reform Party, which in a sense still means that that Nigel Farage will sort of perhaps become the most vocal opponent of the government, or perhaps he will just be a kind of dissenting voice within the parliamentary system. This is a post that you might find interesting from Mahid Nawaz. He says, the UK electoral system is not fit for purpose. Reform, that's Nigel Farage's party, got 4 million votes and only 4 seats. The Lib Dems, that's a kind of centrist party, got 3.4 million votes and 69 seats. Labour won 2/3 of the seats with only 1/3 of the national vote. So, in a way, if we had proportional representation, if each vote meant something, then you'd probably have a very different parliamentary system. It's unlikely that we're going to get that. What we're going to get is a massive majority for the Labour Party. So we're having in the UK, while the rest of the world moves, it seems at least, towards populism, we're having our kind of Trudeau-Macron moment. It'll be an interesting few years. And last night I was trying to find in myself a kind of open-heartedness, a kind of good faith. That's what I'm still trying to find in myself. Certainly I can find a point in myself where it's none of my business. You know, no one really cares, do they? Is there anyone that, other than that person who literally climaxed, does anyone believe this is meaningfully going to impact their lives? Now, sometimes, previously at least, when I was involved in more sort of partisan and intricate conversations around politics, people would say stuff like, you know, the gap between the two parties might only be small, but millions of people die in that gap. You know, there'll be a 5% increase in this type of disability benefit, or this party pledges that they will reform this tax in this manner. But what's true? Is it that we're facing some massive crisis? And both sides of the aisle present you arguments of that nature. If it's the left, they'll say in the form of climate crisis. If it's the right, they'll say in the form of perhaps these escalating wars. And so how can incremental responses be appropriate to what are meant to be catastrophic events? It just doesn't really make sense. The good news is that Keir Starmer, the new Prime Minister of the UK, who, given the size of his victory, will likely be the Prime Minister for a couple of election cycles. He'll probably win the next election. It's such a huge majority. Generally, I don't know, that's how the trend works. If people have enormous majorities of this nature, it tends to mean they're in power for a little while. It don't matter what you think of him, because he will literally be whatever you want him to be. This is really, even in the kind of sceptical, unreliable and unstable space that is modern politics, even with the spectacle of a senile president who moment to moment might declare himself a black woman, might mistake the 4th of July for Christmas Day, to see a politician change their mind so readily, so easily and so conclusively is still pretty astonishing. This is what Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the UK, stands for.
I want to pay tribute to Jeremy Corbyn, who's a friend as well as a colleague.
You wouldn't call Jeremy Corbyn a friend?
No. We have to make the case for freedom of movement. We don't want open borders. Freedom of movement has gone and it's not coming back.
Cutting off power, cutting off water.
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. I was not saying that Israel had the right to cut off water, food, fuel or medicine. Wounded by the media, the Sun in this city, a hurt for this city. And I certainly won't be giving any interviews to the Sun during the course of this campaign.
Did you write an article for some newspaper the other day? Surely that's not going to gain you any support across the Northwest.
Would you write for them again, Sir Keir?
I would do, yeah.
Can you guarantee that under your leadership, the 2019 Labour commitments to nationalise water, energy, rail, the Royal Mail, they'll all be in Labour's next election manifesto?
I've made that commitment.
Will you nationalise the big six energy companies, yes or no?
No.
No, you will not.
By the Home Secretary was the wrong decision, and I think it was a rushed decision.
He must be a pretty accomplished individual. He's achieved loads of things in his life, and in a way that montage isn't an indictment of Keir Starmer as an individual, or at least if it is, that's not what's primarily interesting about it. It shows us, I suppose, that we live in systems now that demand political figures that will just parrot the talking points that are required of them. What that indicates is not a moral failing of Keir Starmer, but a deeper truth, the truth that real power is behind the facade of the political processes in which we participate. The reason I'm saying that is because otherwise Keir Starmer would have an opinion and he would know what his opinion was because it's his opinion. He would have a policy and he'd know what his policy was because the policy would make sense, because it would be built on the basis of virtue or pragmatism, wouldn't it? So he wouldn't just say, like, I'll never speak to the Sun newspaper, I write for the Sun newspaper, Israel shouldn't have done this, they had every right to do that. You would have a position. Of course, all of us, including myself, continually grow and evolve. But what we don't all do, I don't think, is alter our perspectives entirely on the basis of a pressing ulterior force that is the true governing power. We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. You know how much I love the prayer app, Hallo, and our next prayer challenge is Witness to Hope, the life of Saint John Paul II. This challenge walks through the life of this incredible saint and is being led by the brilliant actor Jim Caviezel, who portrays Jesus, as you saw in The Passion of the Christ, and was even struck by lightning. Hopefully, you saw my interview with Jonathan Rumi. He also portrays our Lord and Saviour Jesus in The Chosen, and he's one of the voice guides in the Hallo app. In fact, you can often have either Jim Caviezel or Jonathan Rumi. Choose your favourite Jesus. I mean, what other app offers you that? For July's prayer challenge, I'll be using Hallo every day, and you should as well, because this app can help you find peace and learn more about faith and just have a daily top-up of your connection to the Lord. Download it for 3 months for free. Join the July prayer challenge, Witness to Hope, on July the 15th on hallo.com/brand. Use our code, then they'll know that we sent you, and you will be held in our prayers too. See you over there. And that was a message from our sponsors. Now back to the content. What does it mean to be working class? What does it mean? Tell us, Prime Minister.
Was working class. Sir Keir, define working class.
No, working class is families that work for their living, earn their money through.
They work for their living, they earn their money, like Dolly Parton in 9 to 5. Like, look at his eyes while they're talking. Like, look and see what's in there.
Going out to work every day, not through other
Not middle
means.
classes do that?
Well, working
no.
class families have the.
Oh, look, he's really thinking. Well, how can you get to this position where you're, at this point, on the precipice of becoming Prime Minister? This was, I don't know when this was, a year ago, 6 months, who knows? But he doesn't look very certain about the world, does he? Whatever he has gleaned by passing through academia and becoming a lawyer and heading up the CPS and becoming an MP and the leader of the Labour Party and now the Prime Minister of a country, has it worked? Like in the same way as has it worked, the remedies that you're applying in your own life for your own pursuits, is their system working even for them? Is globalism working even for them? Is it working for, I don't know, Klaus Schwab or Albert Bourla or Bill Gates or George Soros? Unless they do have some sort of demonic occultist worship of Moloch-style benefits that we don't know about, where there are sort of sacrifices and glory and frequency-shifting ceremonies and events, then I don't see how it can be of any real benefit. You look into their faces, they're just like us, people that are going to expire, that only have a chance of living in eternity if they're willing to make certain personal changes. What's it all been for? And more importantly, what is working class?
Ordinary hope to get on in life.
It's the ordinary hope to get on in life. Like, what would it once have been? Like, you work in sort of, either you're a peasant and you work on the land, or you work in industry. That's what it would have once meant, isn't it? Like, you get your hands dirty. I've heard people in America say people that shower before and after work, but that could just be a pervert.
I mean, this has been a story.
Middle classes have that
Yeah,
as
of course
well.
they do. Of course they do.
So what's the distinction?
I was addressing.
It's like when you watch the election and experience it, you realise that British politics lacks the glamour of American politics. I'm not saying glamour is a good thing, by the way, but even the most sort of, let's say, popular, glamorous figure, the person who seems to be sort of most adept at dealing with media, is still, like, actually rather clumsy, particularly in a moment like this. Nigel Farage won his seat, even though Reform, as we saw earlier, didn't win as many seats as was anticipated or was possible or plausible or even fair, actually, given that they won or got 4 million votes. They got 4 million, they got 4 seats. One of them was Nigel Farage's. Here's Nigel Farage sort of enjoying himself and making you realise that Britain doesn't do cool that well.
Nigel Farage, MP. Yes. Great good times, come on.
With his champagne and everything. Amazing. Also, Nigel Farage, I suppose he's somewhat styled after Donald Trump. Said to you before, he's the closest Britain has to a Donald Trump figure, although, of course, Donald Trump is rather unique. But you know how people like Donald Trump's mad, giddying, diagonal zigzag signature? Well, Nigel Farage's signature was used somewhat in his campaigns, but it looks like he's, when approaching the end of his name, about to draw a penis, and I don't know if it's something they should be branding around.
This is a revolt against the political establishment. So on July the 4th, do different. Vote for real change. Vote for a voice in Parliament that will give real opposition.
Another independent voice, George Galloway, friend of the show, lost his seat just a couple of months after winning it in rather spectacular fashion. The Labour Party candidate won in that constituency. George Galloway is not popular with the establishment. He is detested. He is loathed. Maybe because of moments like this, where on a popular British television programme a couple of years ago, talking about the Iraq War, this is what he had to say in front of one of the New Labour. New Labour was, I suppose, when the Labour Party started to mutate into what it is now, a kind of centrist party that, broadly speaking, supports corporate interests that are quite often global. It's just I don't know how it's meaningfully different from any other party, really. Let's have a look at George Galloway taking to task Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell, who was Tony Blair's sort of chief of staff, head advisor, who was present in the room while George Galloway said it. You'll see Alistair Campbell's reaction in the piece.
I look forward to the day when Mr. Blair is not in front of establishment stooges, but in The Hague, facing war crimes charges at the International Court. And by the way, his Goebbels, his Lord Haw-Haw, Alistair Campbell, who's got the same blood on his hands, ought to be sitting in the dock alongside him.
You went just before we go to Alistair Campbell.
So British politics does still pertain, of course, to global issues. Often we are used as the lubricant for America's international imperial projects. But when you see the kind of reality of our politics is sort of beset with mundanity and trivia and drabness. You know, all of the memes that were posted yesterday on the 4th of July, like people on like sort of speedboats boats lifting barbells or barbecues, cooking barbecues on jet skis. This is what it is to be American. You know, like the sort of, even America's vulgarity and trash has a kind of high octane glamour to it. And what I suppose that's because you rejected so wholeheartedly Britain at the point of your independence. Because look at what, you know, if you sort of think there was a fight, imagine this story, there was a fight there was a media scrap at a polling station in America. I sort of think of them moments where like MAGA folks have got their tops off and maybe they're fronting up, or the moments at gay pride where there's sort of moments of controversy or conflict. Look at how sort of awful and dismal it is when there's a moment of physical confrontation at a British political event. Oh, that fella's had a shove.
And just nearly tripped up. Oh, he's done it again. What's going on?
He's fighting using his back.
Oh, God, they're having a proper scrap.
Sort of fell over in the rain. So terrible. And like, even when we attempt to use sort of oratory and rhetoric that's colourful and magical, look at this.
And yes, the implosion of the Conservatives and the SNP has put wind in Labour's sails. But the only reason we've got...
Good, yeah, nautical metaphor. Love it, love it. We're a seafaring nation. Keep going.
Sails on the ship, and the ship is ship-shape.
Ship-shape? A ship should be ship-shape.
Is because Keir Starmer took the
starting to realise, look at his eyes widen as he realised, oh no, I'm too deep into this analogy and I can't find my way out.
Vessel from the shipwreck in 2019, rebuilt it and made it ship shape.
You know, it's about ships really. I just thought it says ships are nice, aren't they?
And seaworthy again.
Yeah, happy with that. That'll do. Jacob Rees-Mogg was one of the sort of more loathed political figures of our former establishment occupants of the number 10 and stuff. Here he is being defeated by a man who's got like baked beans on his face. We do stuff like this. I don't know if you do stuff like this in America. We have like candidates who say like call things like bean face. And that's part of politics over here. Like I don't know. So we don't take it fully seriously. And also stuff like this happens as well, where they're waiting for the new prime minister to emerge, and then like a cat attacks a pigeon. This is what Britain is. This is what we can't escape. We shouldn't emulate America, actually. We should accept our Britishness. Look.
Yeah, he retired. Yeah.
Oh! Actually quite into it. It was quite good, actually. It's probably the most exciting, meaningful, organic, natural thing that happened in the evening, although the pigeon does get away. And will it be that different tomorrow morning when we wake up under... Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.